it's great to have this opportunity to be part of opening the conversation and joining in this fantastic conference. As you said, I'm going to talk about the city and who we are as an institution. And I want to try and draw some connections between what we are here for, who we are, and how that changes over time, and how we can make and remake the cities that we are a part of. And I hope that at least some of these thoughts and connections will then find their way into the deeper conversations and the expert panels and the ideas that the conference participants are able to generate. Thank you for that acknowledgement of country, which I share and amplify, and I want to extend my respects to all those people of First Nations who might be joining us today and with whom we work to pursue this business. And I also have a different moment of appreciation and sadness that I want to acknowledge, because the RMIT community is going through a very painful week of grieving this week. So as we do this, I want to acknowledge that moment that we're in and pay my respects to Saskia. Saskia is a much cherished colleague and part of the RMIT community. Of course, our Vice-Chancellor announced this week her sudden passing just at the end of last week. And really, we're all in the early stages of absorbing that and processing that. And there'll be more steps that we can take, both formal and shared in our community and our different spaces and places. Only a week ago, in Saskia's own way, she was communicating and posting through the Australian Technology Network of Universities, which is also based at the RMIT campus and is a great part of our community. She'd been taking part in a brilliant podcast that she'd recorded before she went on holiday, and discussing with colleagues the importance, the value, the joy of international education, and why she loved it so much, how it related to the mission of our institution, and what a thrill it was to be taking part in these activities and shared work together. She loved the oceans, she loved nature, but as much as anything, she loved people and interacting with people. And so, despite it being so raw for so many of us, I want to say, Saskia, we miss you and we appreciate you, and that Saskia's presence and contribution is part of our work and part of what we're doing here. We're in the city. We're in Australia's fastest growing city. It's actually Australia's largest city by people as well. And we are so privileged that culturally, ethnically, demographically, it's one of the world's most diverse cities. The migrant experience, as Kyriakos said, is actually one of our crucial experiences. And we have to constantly understand and strive to understand how it interacts with the First Nations experience. That's another vital part of our conversation. The Flinders Street station that you see there, I learned during last year, its design is actually an accident or a mistake, which benefits us, I think. But if you see some of the, let's call them fake subcontinental themes of that design of that station, it turns out, I still need to learn the full details, that the reason that Flinders Street Station was built like that was that it was actually designed somewhere in the UK and meant to be built somewhere on the Indian subcontinent. But the plans got sent into the wrong place, got mixed up in the post, and we ended up with this design. It's an interesting illustration of how cities can be shaped. And those interactions between the technologies of communication, the ideas of what's appropriate, and then the ways in which we share infrastructure sometimes over centuries. And RMIT as an institution has grown and connected in similar ways. This is just one way of illustrating what we think of as our ecosystem. And the amazing array of connections that comes. Of course, there are many more connections than just what's on the slide. But from one building just around the corner to this, Story Hall, which was originally built for blokes to do some kind of guild-related activity together but in a way which, and then has become part of RMIT's urban fabric and reimagined and redesigned by visionary architects and a part of our space for debating and sharing ideas and coming together. We've grown to become the largest public provider of vocational education in our state of Victoria, the largest international university in Vietnam, a unique network of learning and research and innovation, and also this kind of constellation or ecosystem of places that are based in vibrant urban settings. Each of those urban settings is different from each other, but we all share common connections, and cities face these great and growing challenges at the same time. These are just some of the illustrations as we work through our future thinking, our strategy, our collaborative planning, and we try and understand these impacts. But for me, they also really illustrate how being the institution that we are, a place that's here to serve the community, to create learning opportunities, to house expertise, but also to be applying knowledge and trying to find new and better ways to support outcomes in society. It's very hard to find the edge or the boundary of RMIT. When we think about the society, the environment that we're in, we are contributing to climate change simultaneously as we're trying to understand it and add to the science on it, and then support effective ways of mobilizing to adapt and do better. As part of our work at RMIT, I'm part of the Melbourne Climate Network, and I got to go to the Climate Change Investors Forum at the MCG yesterday and last night to listen to the Prime Minister of Bhutan talking about what it's like to be one of 4 countries in the world which is carbon negative and making a positive contribution to our climate change situation. That is both inspiring and pragmatically an opportunity for RMIT. But the world is dealing with some pretty terrible issues and drivers. Another one of them is about truth and knowledge, standards of evidence, how to interpret what's going on around us and how to communicate. And RMIT is a place of great expertise in those questions and issues as well. When we assemble our community or think about how to work towards the future, we know that whose voice is in the conversation really makes a huge difference. These are 2 men from the same political party who have very different voices when it comes to First Nations. So we have to pay attention to that as well. And of course, we're all now more aware that geopolitics, which perhaps 20 years ago was presented as being a specialist subject and something that was taken care of through some kind of compartment called, rules-based international order, a question for technocrats primarily, is actually something which impacts on all of us, and that as a community, we all need to share responsibility for understanding and renewing. The APEX Study Centre is part of our PSI group and part of the RMIT ecosystem. A fantastic group of people doing really important work, both thinking about the future rules of trade, but also thinking, for example, about the economic empowerment of women and what economic development could look like in the Asia-Pacific region. All of that work is contributing to shaping our future. And so it goes. I don't want to depress you too much. It's really the first session of the conference. But I find it helpful because as we work through our shared life, our working life, our city life from year to year, it's good to remember that many of these practices, ideas, personalities have been around for a while, and we've been discussing and thinking about what impact they have, for example, on the technology in our pocket or the way that we communicate with our networks, but also how we have to take responsibility for crafting a different future from the one that this guy is trying to impose on us. And there are a million ways of doing that. And the kickoff of this morning's hackathon and all of the different challenge-based innovation work that RMIT does is actually an inspiring but a hugely strategic element of how we can do this differently. So that's one joining point to how we can think about RMIT in the city overall. Let's not think of ourselves as being people who are getting ready to have an effect on the city, despite the fact that RMIT trains so many urban planners, transport engineers, creative designers, social thinkers, criminologists, youth workers, roofers, electricians, cyber technology specialists, and so on, people who are and will be actually constructing and weaving together the systems that make our cities. Let's think about ourselves as being a living part of these cities and also mediating that interaction between nature and human life and then technology and material life in all of the myriad ways that it can be done. In our strategy, in knowledge with action, and it's kind of worth emphasizing, that's intentionally why we called it knowledge with action. We made a choice to put the RMIT community at the heart of the strategy. It's not what every institution does. It could just be a symbolic or a rhetorical commitment, but it's actually our opportunity to make it real. And what we say in the document and what we keep coming back to is that consistent with our purpose and our mission, our legislative obligations, all of the different activities that happen across different continents, our commitment for the RMIT community is that it is open, it is diverse, and it's collaborative. And that while that brings challenges and tensions and differences and uncertainties, it's actually the most crucial resource for creating value, both personal value and shared value in the many different things that RMIT undertakes. So now I want to talk, hopefully for a few minutes, about how that might play out in the city and what our urban context and some of the upcoming initiatives could mean for a university that is about technology, enterprise, and design, and also a community which is open, diverse, and collaborative. I focused on Flinders Street Station, but of course State Library Station is going to be open, maybe within a year or so. We tried really hard to get it called RMIT Station, but you know, them's the breaks. This is just one visual. You can see just that behind the traffic light is the RMIT's media portal. It's only a few steps from where we are here today. Amazing spaces. There are lots of incredible underground spaces that you can access through the media portal, including Rusu and CineFM and amazing production and recording facilities and medtech innovation and all kinds. But from some point in the next couple of years, there's going to be a fountain of people coming up from the metro station right onto that pavement where Franklin Street joins Swanston Street. Swanston Street, I think, is already the busiest tram corridor in the world. Think of all those trams going through RMIT and up to Melbourne Uni. And that interaction between public transport, again, urban infrastructure over decades, and then people and possibilities is going to be dramatically changed for us. Should be for the better, but it will create new pressures and new challenges as well. part of our strategy and part of the working relationships that we have is to foster collaboration and learning between urban innovators in different places. And so the wonderful team at RMIT Europe, which is only in its staff setup 40, 50 people compared to the 5,000 or so that you could find in Melbourne. Nonetheless, they're situated in one of the world's most successful urban innovation districts, 22 at, where not only is there a great clustering and concentration of innovating partners, industry leading bodies, accelerators and startup opportunities, but also local government and civic institutions. But there's also world leadership in human scale design, in pavement level safety, in putting children's playgrounds and early years facilities and family cafes right alongside industry facilities and the so-called knowledge economy. And there are thriving links between us all already. There's also a huge effort, and our colleague Gaynor Witz is in Vietnam right now helping with the grieving process, but also continuing to work through our long-term commitments as RMIT Vietnam. And a big part of the next commitment already publicly announced is to keep working with the Vietnamese government on a campus investment in Hanoi and a different and changing set of relationships between those transforming places and economies and RMIT's physical presence. We're also in Singapore. We don't own or operate any campuses in Singapore, but we actually have a massive presence in Singapore through our partnership and our alumni network. There are all kinds of possibilities in some of the most dynamic places in this region, which is transforming and which is, as it happens, the fastest growing economic region in the world. And we have City North, right on our doorstep. So if you get time in the next couple of days, you can walk there in a coffee break. Some of you probably know it already. I was talking last night at the Capitol Theatre to Brian, who taught cabinet making at RMIT for 37 years and was based in the furniture design space, which is on Cardigan Street, which is still there, still teaching students. And there are all those other diversity of training and technology and practical innovation going on in a half-hidden block behind the big orange buildings on Cardigan Street. And for years, we've been working to advocate to the state government, to work with the City of Melbourne, to develop a strategy with the RMIT community, to say, what is a social innovation precinct, which can grow in a way that's consistent with RMIT's identity, which is open to all, which really leverages the connection between vocational and higher education, which becomes a crucible for lifelong learning in the 21st century. How can we physically transform in a way which is carbon respectful, but also innovative and helps to put RMIT's possibilities in a way which is accessible to the whole of the Victorian community. The public transport network means that this City North site is going to be on the doorstep, both for international students coming from Malaysia or the Philippines via the airport, and also for people coming from outer metropolitan or country Victoria. It's actually a really exciting possibility, but it's incumbent on us to work it through in a way which makes the most of all those opportunities. And that's exactly what our shared work is doing. These are visuals from some of the collaborative work that we've been doing over the last year with my colleagues Christina and Tara and many other people from across the RMIT community to think about the possibilities of a social innovation precinct, to join it up with the lived experiences of our current community and find different ways of imagining and prototyping the future, to reflect all the many things that are going on in that neighbourhood already. And so some of these activation days, taking over the street space, thinking about what could happen when we didn't have so many private car parking spaces, creates a sense of the different possibilities that we might be able to realise. And so that's why I'm delighted that Think 3000 is happening, that the themes and the programming are so welcoming to these possibilities, and that we've got the talent and the diversity to be able to work out what might be possible. My close colleagues, Kiri Deli and Nadia Mekali, are speaking in different sessions and helping to facilitate and develop some of these conversations. But there's also an amazing array of talented, expert RMIT academics, researchers, and innovators who are going to help in each session. So I'll be popping back whenever I can. I'll be checking out what comes out, and I really look forward to being inspired, but also to future collaboration. Over to you. Thanks very much.